because we still have brands, right? But actually, if you look at them, they're more like an aspen forest, which is actually not multiple trees. It's a single root system, all integrated. It's a single plant. These are just suckers that come up. This thing can last tens of thousands of years, this single organism under the surface. And while we see, because of branding and marketing and sales and et cetera, these as though they're organizational trees, they're increasingly integrated under the surface in this type of roots system. So on the previous slide, I had the Netflix logo. If you think, what is Netflix? Strip away the brand. Netflix runs entirely off Amazon Web Services, so it's got no infrastructure. It pulls its data from the Internet Movie Database. It does have a studio. I was really annoyed it bought itself a studio because previously it would have been better. It does have, leaving that aside, its content mostly comes from outside providers, so it's plugging together services and content from outside providers. It's delivered through your iPad or through your Samsung TV, paid for, delivered through a network that you've purchased from BT or Sky or Virgin. It doesn't have satellites like Sky did. It doesn't have any of that. Where would you grab if you wanted to grab Netflix beyond the brand? It's like the aspen forest, right? It looks like it's a tree, but really it's just this merger of different services. And that's what I think a modern organization is increasingly like. So could I have the next slide, please? And the problem with this for us as a strategist, as trying to wrestle with it, is when we bring in more and more glue, and the AI, I think, will be a really important glue, because we talked about robotic process automation earlier. You know, if you look at what RPA has achieved by drawing on machine learning to deal with the crinkles and the mess that stop things being plugged together, RPA is essentially able to glue services together. It's improving that gluing, that connecting of services together, allowing us to build these more complicated digital ecosystems, sort of connected digital ecosystems. But the problem is, once you start plugging them together like that, they constantly evolve and change. We call it the Red Queen problem, after Alice through the looking glass, who said, now here, you see it takes all the running I can do to keep in the same price, because these services are in a state of constant evolution, and the potential replacement by higher order systems, as my colleagues in Oslo described it. And therefore, because things are changing all the time, we have to respond to that change. And you know this. How long have I got, by the way? I've just got a few more minutes, a couple more minutes. 5 more, brilliant. You know this, right? Because you've got an iPhone, and you hate it because it's constantly changing. Who hates the fact that the apps on your iPhone are changing, and you don't know how to use anything because they bloody... I tried to get here today on the Google Maps, and they've changed. If you type in Hilton, Tower Hill, it tries selling you a room here. I had to work out, how do I get I just want the bloody directions. But they changed, Google Maps changed the app. I had no choice. Constant evolution. Now imagine that if you're an organization, an insurance company, where this is 1,000 cloud services plugged together with API glues, connected with RPA solutions in a complicated infrastructure where you've got lots of replication and they're all constantly evolving and changing. This is a big strategic challenge. And AI, and I'm a big, I do an awful lot of research in AI. AI will, because of its providing this prediction machine, because it provides all these possibilities of adding intelligence within that, will allow us to grow that. So what do we do strategically? How do we make sense of that? The other thing, it's working again. The other thing is, these things have agency. What do we mean? Agency is a really good social science LSE word. It just means kind of power to do stuff, an ability to do stuff. And I'm not going to mention this company, and I'm not going to mention this graph, but we all know what I'm talking about, where a little bit of software, very cheap to produce, very easy to produce, because software is malleable. We can change it very easily, we can write it very easily and very cheaply, had a massive impact on a particular organization and many organizations. And then alongside that, then, this is the model I think about when I think about modern IT systems. I think about companies being these blurry things on the top, which are connected together because they want maybe data, maybe sensors, maybe other things, maybe other organizations. These are the business processes, these ellipses in the middle, which allow them to do stuff. And then below that, we have various services like payments or TensorFlow is an AI solution, machine learning there. We've got a couple of, I'm sorry I didn't mention the one who was talking about earlier, all good RPAs, I'm not particularly naming one, solutions. And then living on top of these cloud service behemoths. And then below that, we can see the kind of delivery technology. I stick blockchain down there because everyone's interested in blockchain, but it's just a distributed database. And we can get into debates about the possibilities. It kind of sits below the business processes. So strategically, we have to deal with this. We've got this componentization, this modularization, this extended ecosystem reduces management control. So we have to think about how do we control these things and how do we strategically control them. And that's really hard, as my colleagues, Ola Helfridsson and Youngjin Yu have written about extensively. This is hard stuff. So this undermines management control and can lead to these things. I was talking to someone from a very large social network the other week. They call them SEBs, big errors as well, because you can start to, when you build these complicated solutions, when something goes wrong, it can cascade. So Google had a massive failure a couple of weeks ago, if you remember. A lot of data centers went down because of cascading errors. Small error in a script leading to cascading errors. We need to think about and understand that. One of the ways we need to do that is to build, this is some work that we're doing on with colleagues Mark Thompson at Exeter University, who I work with very closely, on how do we build for strategists a sense of the situational awareness, understanding the dynamics of what's going on, understanding the trajectory of where it's going. It's not enough just to understand my ecosystem today. We need to understand the direction it's moving in. And then, in addition to that, we need to think about the way that we respond to and interact with those parts. So we need to be like the fighter pilot who has these gauges which tell them where they're going and that the world is upside down and that there's two fighter planes next to them. So just in conclusion, how do we do that? I have no really strong answers, sorry. This is where you wanted, Lee. Ta-da! But I haven't got that. What I think you can do, though, and I think this is where we're walking towards, is it needs to be a focus on core dynamic capabilities. What do you see as the core of your business? If you were Netflix, if you looked at your organization today and said, we're like Netflix, what are we really about? And isolating those. It might be about data, it might be about expertise, it might be about algorithms, it might be about the data pipes that you can plug together, and put those alongside your traditional core capabilities that we all kind of learned in MBA programs to isolate and think about. But they're not just core capabilities, they extend beyond that. And then try to build some situational awareness about this ecosystem as a dynamic thing with risk and opportunity in all parts. So trying to just structure an understanding of that and introduce into your understanding the idea that machine learning is coming. I think blockchain is coming as well, but I don't think it's as exciting and interesting as machine learning, personally. But these things will massively, it's like a pouring petrol onto those systems. And then start to work cases around your company. How can you profit within an ecosystem? And how can you see that situational awareness, use that to see how it's going to change into the future? Are you best placed to harness this? If you're not, which outside service, like Suki, how could you build a Suki solution that changes what you're doing? How could you build a Suki solution that allows you to reinvent part of what you're doing? And then consider within this the collapse in the price of prediction AI technology. And because Moore's law doesn't seem to be stopping, the possibilities of AI are definitely coming, and therefore they will pour that petrol onto these systems. So, thank you very much for your time.
London Market Forums, bringing insurance professionals together.